It's me waiting for Finnick. Hi, and welcome back to Katie Can't Read. I'm Katie, I can read, and today I'm gonna count down my top 10 favorite books I read this year so far. This list I'm making today because there are still 3 weeks left in the year, but I don't think there's a lot of books left that are going to take a spot in this top 10. Then again, I don't know. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm very confident in the fact that I think I've hit a top 10 amount. So today I'm going to give you my top 10 favorites. It was really hard to boil down 10 favorites, and then I decided I'm going to give you the actual order, and we're going to pinpoint my favorite book of the year. I know, right? Crazy. I can't believe I did that. I can never pick a favorite book. I put a little bit of me in every book I've ever read. A few disclaimers. Number one, these are only going to be books that I read the first time this year. There will be no rereads. There will be another video on that next week. The second disclaimer, if there's one book from a series on there, just take it as that is the entire series, making that spot on the list. I personally like to binge series, as you've seen from all of my reading this series for the first time vlogs. I really like to sit down and binge a series. I won't be like picking the favorite from each series because I feel like if I did that, then half of the list would be me ranking the series books, you know? Like it would just, that wouldn't be fun, you know? It wouldn't be fun that way. Another thing, I'm looking at myself in my mirror and I know that this looks bad. I absolutely know. It's healing. I had 3 cold sores last week and they are almost healed. And this is the worst day, but I have to film because it's going to be a crazy week. Because I'm filming this on Sunday, meaning tomorrow night is our first live stream and I'm so excited. Thank you, because this will go up after. Thank you to everyone that attended the Polar Express live stream. Please tune in next Monday, the 14th, for How the Grinch Stole Christmas at 5:30 Pacific Standard Time, live on this channel. Now that I've said that and we have all the business done, are we good to go? Are we ready to count down this list? I think we are. Coming in at number 10, we have a book that I read at the beginning of November, and I have not stopped recommending since. Spoiler alert by Olivia Dade. I loved this book. It was a trashy, cliche little romance that also flipped the cliches and let a plus-sized girl be in the lead, and it was so good. And it played with just fame and fan fiction culture and fandom culture, and it was really good. And if you haven't heard from me yet, then read it right now. Go read it right now. If you like romance, this is the way to go. I love it. The plot is Marcus is the lead in this very popular Game of Thrones, but make it Greek mythology type TV show. But he secretly writes fan fiction for it online, and he is friends with his beta reader, April. They don't know that they're each other, and they accidentally end up on a date, and the story commences from there. It's really excellent if you like a little romance, you know, a little in your life. It was really good. Go read it. In 9th place, we have another book that I read last month, and I just talked about it, but I loved Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This book I didn't expect to be a top 10 book of the year for me. When I picked this up, I was like, I'll like it. You know, I was like, it'll be fine. I was blown away. I genuinely cared about these characters, and I have always had just an infatuation with the celebrity lifestyle and how music is made and how actors live their lives and how musicians live their lives. And so this book for me just was I was genuinely wow, I'm gonna go stream Daisy Jones and the Six right now. But they don't exist, they're fictional. Stupid. So for those of you that don't know, Daisy Jones and the Six is a interview style novel about the life and times of the band Daisy Jones and the Six and the one album they wrote together. So it leads you through the build up to when they came together, to their album and how it worked, and then so on and so forth. This book, wow. It was one that I just, like, every time I sat down to read it, I was just like in it, and I felt transported into it, and I really cared about this whole thing. I loved it. It reminded me a little bit of Fleetwood Mac. Do you know what I mean? And it's good for, like, anyone that loves the 70s. It's good for anyone that loves rock and roll music. It's good for anyone that cares about, like, celebrity culture. Or even if you don't, if you just really enjoy characters, it's so good. Coming in at 8th place is a book that my best friend nagged me to read for like a year, and then I finally did it and was kind of a little bit obsessed. Was Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. And this book is, it's so funny. It's so sweet. It's so romantic. It's like a play on the fantasy trope, on the chosen one trope. And I know everyone's heard about this book because it's been around for a long time, but I finally read it for the first time. And then the next day I read Wayward Son and read it in 3 hours. For those of you that don't know, this story follows Simon Snow, who is the chosen one of this world, and how he is the worst chosen one to ever exist. He can't control his magic, and he hates his roommate Baz, and they end up having to solve a mystery together, and there's a love story, and it's just really good. Yeah, I enjoyed this book a lot, and I really like books that are magical realism, and that's kind of what this is. And I like things that are making fun of the standard tropes. I like twists on tropes, and I like that this book kind of makes fun of Harry Potter. Yeah, I loved this book. In 7th place, we have my favorite debut novel of the year. This book came out earlier this year, and I read it pretty much immediately after it came out, and I was whipped. And it kind of hurts that there are only 6 fics on the AO3 tag. So at my fanfic writers, get on the Cemetery Boys fanfic. Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas is the story of Yadriel, who is a transgender Latinx brujo, and he is trying so hard to prove himself to his family as a real boy. And it is this beautiful story of culture, of family, of loving yourself, of falling in love, of ghosts. It's, oh my God, it's so good. I am obsessed with this book. Aiden Thomas as a writer is so wonderful. They create this world that is so magical and yet so grounded, and it's just so good. I loved this book. I really did. And I kind of can't stop thinking about it. It's one of the books that I can't stop thinking about. And the romance in this is so soft, okay? Like, if you like books that are like a self-discovery story with like a hint of romance, this is the book for you. If you like things that are magical and adventurous, this is the book for you. I know a lot of people talk about it being like slow in the middle, but I disagree. I thought the middle was the best part because I like the exploration of the characters and how they all connected. I love this book. Go read it right now. Coming in at number 6 is a book that I think people are gonna be surprised that I had never read before this year. Yeah. I had never read The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky this year. I read this book for the first time in April, and it changed something in me. I always was like, I felt like Charlie for a really long time in my life. And so it was like this, it helped me really like develop my main character syndrome and change my confidence level. And I think that's really important. For those of you that have been living under a rock for the past 15 to 20 years, The Perks of Being a Wallflower is told through letters that Charlie writes to an anonymous friend about his first year in high school. And it's beautiful. It's stunning. It's wonderful. And if you're like, I don't really want to read it, watch the movie. This is the only time I'd be like, the movie is just as good as this book. I love this book. This is definitely a rereadable book for me. Heck, all these books on this list are. This is a very rereadable book for me, though. I wrote an entire essay on the books that have shaped me this year about 3 or 4 months ago, and this was the number one on there, just because I really resonated with Charlie and his story, and yeah. Perks Being Wallflower. Our 5th place book is a book that's another one that people would be like, why did you wait so long to read this? But The Six of Crows duology. I had been nagged for years to read Six of Crows, but I was always like, I don't like fantasy. I don't like fantasy. I don't like it. But I fell in love with it. I will say, when I was first reading Six of Crows, it took me until about like the 3rd part, you know how like it's in parts, like the 3rd part to really like it. But once I was in it, I was in it. I love all of these characters so much. I love their story so much. It's so good. I recommend this to everyone. For those of you that have not read it, this Six of Crows follows 6 misfit teenagers as they get recruited to go on this magic heist. There is magic, there's adventure, there's peril, plot twists, crazy characters with complicated backstories. I'm sure that everyone that's watching this has read this, though, because this is one of the I read young adult fiction go-to books that everyone has read. But if you haven't, let me tell you, from someone who does not like high fantasy all that much, you should do it just because I said so, you know? Okay. I think about these characters a lot. Like, sometimes I'll just be sitting there and I'll be like, remember when Kaz? And like, it hits me, and then I like have to text someone and be like, oh my God, I'm like emotional about Kaz Brecker again, and it's a Thursday. So it hits. It's a good one. It is a good one. Our number 4, I want everyone to be proud of me because I only included 2 books by this author on this list, and let's all give me just like a round of applause for only including 2 Alice Oseman books. And the first one I'm including is I Was Born for This. I Was Born for This took my breath away. This is the most underrated, underappreciated Alice Oseman book, but in my opinion, it is one of her finest. So I Was Born for This follows the band The Ark as they are going through one of the most pivotal weeks in their music career. The Ark is a British boy band made up of 3 boys, Jimmy Kaga Ritchie, who is one of our narrators, Lister Bird, and Rowan. Oh my God, I can't remember Rowan's last name. Anyway, Rowan. And they're on this very pivotal week in their career. At the same time, Angel is the biggest fan of the Ark. And she runs blogs, she runs Twitter accounts, she's a super fan. And she's going to see them in concert for the first time this week. And it's probably the biggest week in her personal life. And she's so excited. She's got meet and greet passes. It's going to be the best week of her life. And it's told through 2 perspectives, Jimmy and Angel's, as their stories go towards each other, cross and intersect and go forward. And out of all of the Alice Oseman books, this one is the most intense. And this is the one that I think about often. And it's a story of friendship. It's a story of music. It's a story about a love of music, of people, of fandom, of bands. And it's just like so incredible. Alice Oseman, I do have a whole video on my love of Alice Oseman, but Alice Oseman does this thing that I really love. And she takes big things and makes them so grounded and small. And this one is a big thing, a big one, where she takes something that's such a huge concept that's so... Fandom culture is so skewed, especially for teenage girls. And she takes it and she puts it into such a grounded perspective. And she talks about the highs and the lows of it. She doesn't glorify it, but she doesn't say it's bad either. It's wonderful. And she really like goes into the perspective of how the boys feel about all of their teen girls. It's so, so good. It has bi representation, trans representation. There's a trans main character. The main character's Muslim. It's just, it's so good. Go read this one. If you're like, I want to read an Alice Oseman book, that's like not a commitment. Like, I read this one in one night. I was obsessed. You guys already kind of know the top 3. You're not going to be surprised at all. In third place, we have one that's not going to be a shocker, but we have to go with The Raven Cycle by Maggie Stiefvater. Need I say? Well, let me give you a summary. The Raven Cycle follows Blue Sergeant, and she has been told her entire life that she will kill the first boy she kisses, if that's her true love. And she goes with her half aunt to see all of the people that are gonna die in the next year on St. Mark's Day, and she sees the spirit of Gansey, who happens to be one of the Raven boys from Aglion Bee Academy. And then she winds up in the middle of their friend group on this quest to find a dead Welsh king in the middle of Virginia. And I think it's the weirdest book I've ever read, but I fell so in love with it. There's something about the combination of the found family of it all, of the adventure, of the magic of it, that just feels so poignant to me. I am someone who I've always wanted to go on a quest with my best friends, and that is essentially what this book is. And it's not a high stakes chosen one type thing. It's just a bunch of friends who are like, we could find a ghost. And I really appreciate that. And it's so fun and it's so complicated, and it really explores the characters, and it is confusing at times. I was confused, but I'm okay with it. I'm always confused. But I recommend this series. And if you've tried it and you're like, I don't like it, like, try it again for me, because I think this series is wonderful. I have like 9 videos talking about these books recently, so like just go watch those. Okay, so choosing between my number 2 and my number 1 was like the hardest decision I've ever had to make in my entire life, because both of these books could easily be number 1. So like consider them tied, but for the sake of this video, I did pick a number 2. And if you're like,
I expected this to be your number 1, like,
don't be offended. It is also my number 1 if you ask me tomorrow. So in number 2, we have Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. We already know it's part of the brand, but I'm obsessed with this book. I read it in August, and I think about it every day. I read sections of it every day. I annotated it. It's perhaps one of my favorite books I've ever read in my entire life. For those of you that, where have you been? It's the story of, it's a romance novel about the first son of the United States, Alex Claremont Diaz, and his enemies to lovers romance with the Prince of Wales, Henry. It is everything you want and more. It's happiness. It's so good. I love this book. And if you didn't already know that, I'm sorry that I have not talked enough about it, that you didn't know that I am obsessed with this book. I did make a Vine compilation, so clearly we know. Yeah. Please read this book. So before we go into our number 1, because I'm the worst, I'm going to give you my 2 honorable mentions. These would actually have made the top 10 if they weren't graphic novels. And I am not saying anything bad about graphic novels. I am obsessed with graphic novels. But the fact that they do a little bit less in the same amount of pages that a full novel does puts them in honorable mentions and not fully on the list. And also, these haven't hit me as much as the actual novels that did make the list. So first, we have Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. I love these, and I think you should read them. And they're free online. And the second one is my newest graphic novel obsession. Would like to give a shout out to Rachel from Shipwrecked Library for finally buying me the first edition of Check Please. I haven't read the second one yet because it just came in 5 minutes before I started filming this video. I I loved it. I read it so fast and I was like sobbing over it. Stay tuned for Golden Retriever Men Part 2, where I just talk about Eric Biddle. I loved this. But now, let's get into our number one. And the number one book of the year is Loveless by Alice Oseman. I did make a 23-minute book talk talking about how much this book means to me. And I have never felt so strongly about a book in my entire life. This book is beautiful. And I know that a lot of people have read it. And if you have read it, you agree with me, we're fine. This book means so much to me. It is the coming of age, coming out story of Georgia, who comes to terms with her identity as someone who's asexual and aromantic. And as someone who is aro-ace, I felt seen by this book. This book hits different when you are aro-ace. And it also, I have a lot of friends who aren't aro-ace who have read this and loved it just as much as I did. Well, maybe not just as much, but a lot. I cannot recommend this book enough. It's such a beautiful story. And Alice Oseman, as I said with I Was Born for This, she takes huge concepts and grounds them so deeply. And she really does it in this one. And this book just feels like a page out of my own life. All the way down to the fact that their favorite movie as a friend group is Moulin Rouge, which is my favorite movie of all time. And I have not reread this since I read it the first time, but I'm already planning on it. So, this book made me weep. It's one of my favorite books I've ever read in my entire life. I cannot recommend it more. If you want to hear my full thoughts, please watch my book talk because I really go into it there. And this book just means so much to me. So we did it. Those are my top 10 plus 2 honorable mentions. Books of the year. 2020 was a bad year for life, but it was a great year for reading for me. I read more good books than bad, and I finally made it out of my 6-year reading slump. And I'm very, very, very proud of it. I love every book that I put on this list so much. And even though there was a number 10 and a number 1, I love them so much. And they just mean so much to me. Thank you for watching. Please take these recommendations and read all of them and then tell me what you think. Unless you hate them, in which please don't tell me. It will hurt my feelings. I will take it personally. So yeah, I love these books. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment on this. What's your favorite book you read in 2020? Watch my live stream this Monday night. We're going to read How the Grinch Stole Christmas, and it's going to be a great time. I'm very excited. I'll see you in the next chapter.